Hello friends, Namaskar and a very warm welcome to today's episode. Hope all of you are doing very well. Today in this episode I shall be taking you over to the African continent to introduce three Nobel laureates in literature from that continent. Of course, the three are from different countries. In fact, for a period of 5 years from 1986 to 1991, there were three Nobel laureates from the African continent. Out of the three, I have already spoken to you in detail about one in an earlier episode. So let me start with the year 1986. In the year 1986, the Nobel Award for Literature was awarded to Nigerian Ole Soyinka. Ole Soyinka is a famous literary personality from Nigeria. He is a playwright, poet, and a writer of short stories. If we look at his life, we see that Ole Soyinka was born in 1934 in a prominent Yoruba family in British occupied Nigeria. By the way, Yoruba is one of the major tribes of Nigeria. Ole completed his education from Nigeria and later moved to Leeds University in UK for further studies. At that point of time, he started his literary career and he was a playwright. After completing his studies in Leeds University, Ole joined the Royal Court Theatre in London and also published his first major production, The Swamplands. It was followed later on by other prominent dramas which included The Lion and the Jewel and others. Like his friend and contemporary Chinua Achebe, Ole Soyinka was also involved in Nigerian politics and went back to Nigeria to teach in the University of Lagos. He was a professor of English and contemporary literature there. In his political speeches, Soyinka had criticized the African dictatorships and their personality cults and their atrocities. During the Nigerian Civil War, he was arrested and imprisoned in solitary confinement for 2 years. Ole Soyinka is the first sub-Saharan ethnic African to be awarded the Nobel Prize, and till date he is the only ethnic African to receive the Nobel Prize for literature. After his release from prison, Soyinka, Chinua, etc. continued to enhance art and literature in Nigeria, and a whole generation of Nigerian authors followed them in their footsteps. Though Ole Soyinka preferred the role of a playwright, he was equally adept in prose and poetry. He had also acted as the lead man in his home production, where he has acted the role of Patrice Lumumba, the first president of Democratic Republic of Congo who was brutally murdered by the CIA. Soyinka's Nobel in 1986 is of particular significance. The critics are of the opinion that it was the first Nobel to be awarded to new English authors who have evolved from the erstwhile British Empire colonies. Ole Soyinka dedicated his Nobel to Nelson Mandela and in his speech has criticized the policies of the South African government who were having a very brutal anti-apartheid policy at that time. Now aged 86, Ole Soyinka continues to write and produce plays which are of great significance. Moving on from Nigeria and Ole Soyinka, we come to the year 1988. In this year, Nobel Prize for Literature was awarded to another African. This time it was the Egyptian writer Najib Mahfouz. Najib Mahfouz is one of the first contemporary writers of Arabic literature who had written on the themes of existentialism. In a 70-year-long career, Najib Mahfouz has written 34 novels, 350 plus short stories, hundreds of features in Egyptian newspapers and 5 plays. Many of his works have been made into films in both Egyptian and other foreign languages, and he has been the scriptwriter in some of these. Najib Mahfouz's writing style was blunt and direct, and he has written on various topics, some of them controversial like homosexuality. His writings reflect the development of Egypt in the 20th century as well as the revolution which took place in the 50s, where the monarchy was overthrown under the leadership of Nasir. Some of his writings are political, and he has influenced and inspired a whole generation of young Egyptian writers. His crowning glory came in 1988 when he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature, and till date remains the only Arabic writer who was awarded the Nobel Prize. His writings were translated into English and were favorably accepted by the critics. Let us see what Najib Mahfouz had to say on receiving the Nobel in 1988. Quote, "The Nobel Prize has given me, for the first time in my life, the feeling that my literature could be appreciated on an international level. The Arab world also won the Nobel with me." Unquote. Najib Mahfouz continued to write till the age of 94 when he passed away in 2006, thus drawing curtains on a long and illustrious career. We skip 1991 and Nadine Gordimer's Nobel because it was already discussed in detail in an earlier episode, and come straight to the year 2003. In this year, the Nobel Prize for Literature was won by J.M. Coetzee, the South African writer, who was one of the most decorated and acclaimed contemporary writer. Coetzee has been awarded the Booker Prize twice, CNA Prize 3 times, and the Jerusalem Award. Plus, he has been given honorary doctorate degrees by many universities in South Africa and abroad. But the crowning glory is the 2003 Nobel Prize for his contribution in the field of literature. He has produced 14 novels, 4 autobiographical novels, several other essays, and a few poems. J.M. Coates was from an Afrikaans family, but he has written mainly in English. Like Nadine Gordimer and other uh, progressive South African writers, J.M. Coates has always been in the forefront of the anti-apartheid movement and have been very active politically. Like others, his writing has taken a turn after 1994 when apartheid was abolished and the majority rule was established in South Africa. One of his important writings of this second phase is his novel Disgrace, which was published in 1999. This was awarded the Booker Prize and it deals with the complex life in South Africa after apartheid, when the society was trying to come to terms with the massive change after the apartheid is gone. The treatment of this book by Coates is masterly. In 2002, J.M. Coates moved to Australia and in 2006 he took up Australian citizenship. Now aged 80, Coates lives in Adelaide in Australia and continues to write. Time now for me to take your leave after introducing you all to the 3 famous authors from African continent. Before going, I would request all of you to read their works and I am sure that you will be enjoying them. Thank you, namaste, and see you definitely in the next episode.